In this tutorial, we will be covering features in the System Setup Features feature set. We're going to be looking at deploying the system and loading seed data. So this section will cover two features, as execution of the features involves running a single script. Loading seed data is a step in the deployment of the system, and the deploy script runs in a bash shell on the local system that is pointed to the root directory of the code repository. The system stops running Docker containers, builds and starts the database, front-end and back-end containers for base paths, verifies containers are operational, and then loads the seed data. The seed data is located in the repository and includes the 2026 Major League Baseball schedule and ballpark data to be loaded into the database via backend endpoints. The script also has a load key that is used for authorization to load the data. So we will be covering two stories here, user story 10, loading ballpark and schedule data, and user story 11, deploying the system. This tutorial is going to assume that you've completed the prerequisites of setting up Docker, Docker Compose, and Git Bash or another bash shell, as well as cloning the repository onto the local machine and freeing up localhost ports for 8080, 5173, and 5434. Jumping into our execution steps here, we're going to open Git Bash, which we already have open, and we're going to navigate to our repository. So jumping into our code repository here, we can then run the deploy script. And we can see that it has started to run. This will take probably somewhere between 5 to 8 minutes to run on initial load. So we will go ahead and jump ahead to when it has completed. Okay, that actually only took about a minute to load, but that is likely due to the fact that it is not my first time running it on this machine. It may take a little longer if it is your first time, but we can observe some of the feedback that we've gotten from this script. So we can see that we got indication that the base paths deployment had started, that the load key was generated, and that old containers were removed. And then we have this building containers line here to indicate that it started building the containers. Once the containers were built, which we can see here, then it waited for the backend to start up. And then once it got a ping back, we get this backend running, front end running, and database healthy feedback, meaning that all of our containers are up and running. And then we get this note for that it is loading the ballpark data. And we can see that that load completes and that 30 entries were added. This is the correct number that we would expect. We then are told that we are loading schedule data, and we're told that the game data load has completed and 2,431 new entries were added. That is also the correct number that we would expect. And then we get notified that the data load is finished and that the deployment is successful. Our next step in this tutorial is going to be to verify that everything is up and running. So we're going to start by jumping into the localhost 5173, which is going to take us to the application. We can see that it's up and running. Looks like I have a session token active, but if I log out, you will likely see the login page if you don't have a active token. Was doing some testing on this before, so my browser is still open. But we have the login page here. So that shows us that the front end is up and running. And then we can check the Swagger page at localhost 8080 Swagger UI index.html. The links for these are in the steps in the end user guide document. And we can see that the Swagger page loads, indicating that the backend is indeed up and running. And so that's going to be it for this tutorial.